Christopher Bell says COVID doesn't exist. I do definitely believe it exists. Apollo Cruise has it. Apparently, that is the reason why he was not on the WWE pay-per-view last night. Obviously, if you're young and healthy, like the 40 WWE talent that supposedly had it, you're not going to die. But if you're an older person like superstar Billy Graham with multiple health issues, you could be more at risk. That's why, as I answered someone on Twitter today at my Devon Hannibal Twitter, who was asking about Billy Graham, that's why he's keeping himself isolated, and people like me really don't have any fear of catching it. But then there's others that are extremely fearful of catching it. As far as Rey Mysterio Jr., who lost his eye last night in the ridiculous eye for an eye match against Seth Rollins, according to the Wrestling Observer, Rey Mysterio still has not signed a new contract with WWE. I did post a video clip from my interview with Raven today talking about altercation he had with Billy Jack Haynes in their Portland wrestling days together. And a fan, Jefferson E. White, I think his name was, sent me the graphic that I used for this news update about where is Billy Jack Haynes. I just checked today with his agent, Eric Sims. He hasn't heard from him. I haven't heard from him since like literally March. Whenever Rip Oliver died, that was the last time I literally heard from Billy Jack Haynes. He disappeared off the surface of the earth after that. So if anyone out there knows where he is, tell him to contact me. There's a lot of fans continuously want to know if he's okay, and I want to know if he's okay. As far as Marty Scrull, the guy that had sex with a 16-year-old when he was 26 or 27, he's the booker for Ring of Honor, and he works for NWA too. He recently, well, I guess there hasn't been any recent challenges for the NWA title. The last NWA taping was something like January 25th. But it's funny that that Jim Cornette was like banished from the NWA and had all that heat over making some joke about fried chicken. And it was definitely not a well thought out joke, but it was done on a pre-tape show that they aired anyways. And he got so much heat for that. But Marty Scrull having sex with a 16-year-old, NWA has made no statement on him. And the Wrestling Observer stated today that it's been about a month since Ring of Honor said they were going to investigate that situation with him having sex with the 16-year-old, but they haven't said anything since then. And they speculated on the Wrestling Observer to radio today, are they just hoping this is going to blow over? Who knows? But it seems like an awful long time for an investigation where he has admitted he had sex with the 16-year-old, but he said in the UK that's legal. And then I've also had people tell me that in the UK, for that big of an age gap, they don't think it's legal. And those are people from the UK. The guy that runs the Super Clash group over in the UK actually told me that. He said that as far as he knows, if you're 27 having sex with a 16-year-old, that's not something that's really acceptable there. Victor Murphy tips me $7.77 and said, "Hey man, what's for dinner? Great channel. I just had a steak. That's my pre-workout meal, I guess, for today, and a nice tall glass of water that I've almost finished here." Something also interesting reported today on the Wrestling Observer Radio, where I just finished listening to their news report while I was having my dinner. Dolph Ziggler only won one singles match in 2020 before his title shot against Drew McIntyre last night at the Extreme Rules WWE pay-per-view. So how is it possible that a guy that's only won one match is deserving of a title shot? It makes absolutely no sense, but not that anything in the WWE makes much sense these days. And also on that same show, they mentioned Lar Sullivan, although he isn't being used by WWE. And if you forget who Lar Sullivan is, he's the guy that supposedly made racist and bigoted remarks only for it to come out that he's a former gay porn star. So it could be a situation with Sullivan that they're just going to keep him off TV and let his contract run out, because I don't know how they could bring that guy back. He's really not Google friendly. If you search his name, all that gay porn stuff comes up. John Falsetta says, but is Dolph a great storyteller? Hilarious. I don't think anyone in WWE is a great storyteller these days, to be honest. I haven't seen any interesting stories on WWE, really. No Holds Barred that I watched a couple weeks ago and reviewed on this channel was more entertaining to me than anything I've seen on WWE TV. And No Holds Barred wasn't really known for being a Oscar-winning movie, but it was entertaining. See, they call it world storytelling entertainment, but it's not entertainment. Maybe they need to change the entertainment part too. Maybe it's just world storytelling productions, world storytelling productions, because it's not entertaining. It's a production, but it's boring and it's stupid. A guy supposedly gets his eye ripped out. Okay, whatever. Missy Hyatt put out a video where she brought up a valid point. Maybe there has been, but I've never heard of it. Why has there never been a female agent or producer in WWE or WCW? I don't even know if there's any in AEW. But I do agree with Missy Hyatt there. That is strange that it doesn't seem like there's ever been a female producer / agent in wrestling. And also for an update on Bobby Fulton of the Fantastics. Apparently, he thought he had beat his cancer, and now it's come back. And I guess he's been hospitalized over the weekend, and his health is in a pretty critical state right now. So let's hope he can pull through. I did do an interview with him last year at the Arnold Classic in Ohio, where Fulton lives. So he was nice to me. So let's hope he can pull through. Colonel Quayle says, hello, Piper. Piper's not around. I think she's sleeping. 49ers Empire says Vince McMahon doesn't like people who get sick. MRF tipped me $9.99. He says, thanks for all the wrestling news and the wrestling movie reviews. Those movies are definitely better than today's wrestling. I agree with you, MRF. I fully agree with you. Now, in today's wrestling, I mean, until he was recently outed as it's not like it was that big of a guess that Joey Ryan was a sexual deviant, but not too long ago in wrestling, this guy had a job with Impact, and the AEW executives were publicly buddies with him. He was on the Being the Elite, and this is a guy that's like doing dick kissing in the ring, for Christ's sake. I mean, it's so bad what wrestling has become. It's embarrassing. It's absolutely embarrassing to be a wrestling fan these days, to be honest. Tommy Branco says, poor Billy Jack. He sold drugs, got himself gang stalked by Community Watch, and it drove him crazy. I hope he's all right. I don't know where he is. I actually think, though, for the people that believe he's crazy, I mean, he does have CTE issues, just like New Jack admittedly has. Lots of wrestlers have it from the trauma to the brain over the years. It adds up. And don't forget that Billy Jack Haynes was also a boxer, and he seems like he was always getting into fights, so that's a lot of concussion issues. Speaking of concussion issues, there's also that WWE Concussions Lawsuit that Billy Jack was part of. For some reason, the only wrestler they wanted to hire back or become on good terms with that was part of that concussion lawsuit was Sylvain Grenier, who apparently he's still working for WWE as a producer, even though he's Canadian, but they fired Lance Storm. Make sense of that. Anthony says, Raw is on tonight. I must be missing it. Oh, well. C4P says that Billy Jack is probably camped out in Mena, Arkansas. Tony Branco says police agencies use horrible, dirty tricks and mind games on people who are suspected drug dealers. This is what Billy Jack, why he's such a conspiracy theorist, and he says he has firsthand experience in that. Who knows? But yes, Billy Jack Haynes, you could describe him as a conspiracy theorist, much like Dr. Stephen Greer, who is also a conspiracy theorist, and I really have found that guy has no credibility, Dr. Greer. Mick Horder 141 says the eye for an eye match gimmick was just stupid. Are you telling me Ray is gonna work that from now on? Wrestling is really stupid these days. It is, especially if you consider that most of the people watching wrestling, the biggest demographic is in their late 50s. There are people from other demographics, but the biggest demographic is like 56, 57, 58-year-olds. And yet they're doing the most childish gimmicks ever, which are actually probably, like, you can't tell me the teenagers would think an eye for an eye match in a fake sport would be cool. I just can't see that. Nicholas Rogue says, what's wrong with WWE? Rain Negroni says, I hated the eye for an eye match, really. C4P, what if Billy Jack Haynes was murdered for speaking out about stuff? Possible. If he was, maybe there was some truth to the Boys on the Tracks things that he says he was involved with. Dennis says he hasn't been able to get through 5 minutes of the current wrestling products. Patrick says Dolph Schumer, maybe Bang Vince as well. I don't know who Amy Schumer is. I know Dolph did have sex with Sonny, though. He's one of the younger wrestlers that have, along with Johnny Devine and what's his name, Alex Silva, who I believe has also kind of dropped off the face of the earth. Thank God. Worst, one of the most unenjoyable shoot interviews I ever did was with that guy. Mexi Gringo Lambaya says Billy Jack Haynes could possibly be bipolar. Could he be in the hospital? Aerobics says, what are my thoughts on Randy Orton? I don't like that he breaks kayfabe now, but it might even be mandated now by WWE that they break kayfabe in every outside WWE interview they do now. It might be mandated because it happens literally all the time. As far as his in-ring abilities, he's a great wrestler. Am I a fan of Bray Wyatt? No. Patrick Hellpenny, WWE is a bore. They need the Attitude Era back. I think one of the big problems is Vince is like 74, 75 years old. What kind of I'm sorry, but What kind of 75-year-old is going to be able to create a product that young kids like? I don't know. At one point, he was cool, but now it's just become too much of a corporate company, and it just plain sucks. Jonathan Turbide, was Ray wearing a mask last night? I actually believe he was, yes. Tony Branco tips me $6.99. Says, thanks for keeping us old school fans sane. You're welcome. I mean, I think I'm the only news person, other than possibly Jim Cornette too, that speaks their mind and doesn't try to act like everything's great. But yeah, you know what? I tell you the truth. I'm not secretly taping. I don't even know how to DVR. Okay, that's how little TV I watch. I just watch YouTube and Netflix. But no, I'm not secretly taping Raw. After this, I'm going to the gym. And yeah, then I'm coming back. I'm interviewing Butterbean tomorrow, so I got to get my questions together for him. Dennis asks, would I ever want to have Cornette on the show? He said no 3 times. So from what I understand, Jim Cornette only really wants to do his own stuff. I'm sure Dark Ring paid him a lot, but he doesn't really want to do other YouTube channels because he does his own stuff and he's in control of what he puts out. So I understand that that's what he wants to do. So I listen to some of his things. I don't agree with everything he says about everything, but I do listen to some of his clips for sure, particularly when they're newsworthy. Have I ever tried to get GSP for an interview? Yes, I have, but I didn't hear back. I think if I asked him in person, he would probably say yes, because at one point we were training at the same wrestling club, and I know he would probably remember me from that. But just me randomly messaging his people, I've heard zero feedback. Cornette will eventually do an interview with you, Tony Branco says. Who knows? Vincent Alvarez, do I believe that Rick Martel should be in the WWE Hall of Fame? And he'd also love to see me interview him. Well, Rick Martel only lives 4 hours away from me. I've stated a bunch of times on here, I've tried to get him to do interviews with me. He says he wants nothing to do with wrestling anymore. I'm sure if he was offered a spot in the Hall of Fame, he'd take it. But much like a lot of us, and I don't blame him, he's disillusioned with wrestling. He's moved on with his life. He made a lot of money in his career, particularly his 3-year WCW contract, from what I understand. So he doesn't need a shoot interview payoff at this point in his life. Ed from Queens tipped me $10. Thanks a lot, Ed from Queens. Says he's 59 and a huge wrestling fan, but it's so childish. I thought it was the only person. He thought he was the only person over 12 watching it. Bill Apter was his neighbor in Queens in 1970. Gave him tickets to see wrestling at the Sunnyside Gardens. That's cool. Now, as much as I like Bill Apter, and I believe I am the new Bill Apter of this generation, he's one of the guys that refuses to ever say anything negative about wrestling, which I have 3 interviews with Bill Apter on this channel, by the way, maybe even 4 if you search up Bill Apter, the Hannibal TV. But I'm shocked that he can still remain positive about what's going on. Is Conrad Thompson going to the gym with me? What kind of a question is that? Conrad Thompson is like 450 pounds. I don't think he's ever seen the inside of a gym. That's very funny, and Matt Bradley finds that funny too. I had to go out and buy new sandals today because somebody took my sandals at the gym yesterday. I'm really pissed about that. And then I got a speeding ticket on my way home. They had a speed trap set up, so it was a very expensive workout for me yesterday. And thanks for the butterbean questions. If you actually have a butterbean question, go to my YouTube stories and put the questions in there, because that's when that's where I look at them from. Speaking your mind will not get you rich. Michael Joseph says, well, I do have more people watched my channel in the last 30 days than watched Dynamite. Well over 1 million more. Something like 1,300,000 more watched my channel than watched Dynamite. God only knows how many people watch Impact, but it's relatively none. So I'm sure I also do pretty well compared to Impact. I do know this channel gets not even comparably more views than NWAs and MLWs. And I'm not knocking them. I actually like MLW. I'm just saying I'm doing pretty well, and I'm working hard at it. And I thank all of the fans that give me the tips, like Ed from Queens and others today, that are going to help me fund future interviews. I'm going to try and get Bas Rutten very soon. I'm going to try and get Scott Norton. But Butterbean was the one that won the vote, so I'm working on him right now. Do I still train in MMA? Well, I have a Dungeons. I actually bought a full amateur wrestling mat in my basement. It's double thick. I fold it in half, and I have a training center down there, and I have a martial arts trainer that comes a couple days a week to train me. Would I have an MMA fight for the right money? Yes, but it would really have to be enough money so I could have a proper training camp, because I'm not going to have an MMA fight unless I can train for it full time leading into the fight. I'm not going to do it half-assed. So we are on Twitter and Instagram at the Hannibal TV. We do have a podcast on iTunes, a Great North Wrestling Podcast. The link is in the description. Thank you very much for your questions.